to have some communication with our presenter, and that leads me to the introduction. Sir John Hartnett, who is the now Northwest Regional Sales Manager for Majestic Glove. And John, we appreciate you joining us today, and we are looking forward to hearing from you and the information that you have for all of us. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. You can go ahead and click share screen.
Awesome. The moment of truth. Thanks, Rhett, and thanks everybody for being here. Couple quick things while I put this together. We are also joined today by my boss and the person who formerly had my position, Tony Sanseri, is with us. So he may also be a resource to those that have questions with his experience and knowledge. The other, what is everybody seeing right now?
We're seeing your home screen.
Okay,
yeah, your
stand by.
desktop.
Stand by. Let me retweak this. Just one moment. This is always the moment of truth, right?
That's right.
All right, here we go. All right, so let's do this. Move this over here. And I'm going to click this. And we should be seeing the proper stuff.
There we go. Looking good.
All right, should jump into presentation mode here. Does that look right? What are we seeing?
That looks right.
Single slide, or is it showing my next slide?
It's showing your next slide.
Yeah.
All right. How about now?
There you go.
Looks good.
All right. Woohoo! Hey, before I get rolling on this, another quick comment. There was a mention of a worker struck in the face by a dropped object, and some of you know from history that that's how I got my introduction to this safety community. So if folks out there want guidance or to be pointed to other resources for dropped object prevention, it's kind of an area, although I'm not quote unquote practicing it anymore, it's still kind of near and dear to my heart. So feel free to reach out on that. I can point you to some folks that can probably lend some assistance. That's completely preventable. All right. All righty. And everybody can hear me, correct?
Loud and clear.
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. So thanks again for having me. We're going to talk about hand and arm protection. The title of our presentation is It's All in Your Hands. And we're going to move on here. Let me see if I can get this to click. There we go. So, you know, hands, we all are born with a pair of them, hopefully. And they are the tool of tools, as this slide says. It's truly amazing what our hands can do, what they're capable of. It's important to know that even the strongest hands have vulnerable components right below the skin, as indicated here on this slide. So there's a lot going on inside our hands, and protecting them is what we're all about. And we should be very cognizant of how much is going inside our hands. Consider for a moment all the things that our hands do over the course of a day, you know. Consider your favorite hand unable to fully function. How might that impact your day or your life? It's a fairly, if you think through it in that way, it's a fairly daunting thing what a hand injury can do. I, a few weeks ago, got a simple cut on the tip of my index finger on my right hand, which I'm right-handed, and it took several days to heal up to the point where it didn't hurt and it wasn't sensitive and I didn't have to have it covered, and it certainly put a crimp in just the things I was doing, and it was a very minor injury. So it's important to understand what all is going on there. There's no question that even, as I said, the smallest injury is an inconvenience and can be potentially really, really debilitating to us. Good friend of mine many years ago cut his hand. He worked in the glass industry, cut the palm of his hand across his palm didn't have a glove on. And basically, to this day, when we're hanging out, I can still see him every now and again rubbing the palm of that hand with his other hand and moving his fingers, because to this day and a couple decades later since the injury, still that injury is part of his life on a daily basis. Okay. You know, ever since humans began using tools, the opportunity for hand injury has been present. You know, as you look at this slide and you see these old Stone Age tools and sharp edges and heft and weight and all that stuff, you know, they certainly presented a danger then. But as time has moved forward, the tools and materials that we use have evolved along with the danger. Sharper knives, edge tools, think about sheet metal, think about metal studs and other building materials that are out there that people are around and using. So this is not new. It's been around for a long time, and as safety cultures have grown and changed over history, we've identified the need to protect ourselves, but it's ever evolving, and we need to stay on top of it. So here's some quick numbers for you. I'm a big fan of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. In my former life, I referred to the numbers they supply a lot because they're important. But it's also important to note the numbers you're seeing on this slide do not represent injuries that were not reported or misrepresented. The actual rate of injury is likely much higher. And it depends on the safety culture of the area, of the company, of the country, as to how things get reported and such, right? Also, it's important that, you know, what we understand is that what denotes an OSHA recordable, and in that I'm among safety professionals, that, you know, we all know that probably involves secondary treatment for the injury and or missed time from work. If I'm missing anything on that, what denotes a recordable, somebody feel free to chime in. So again, this number is likely much lower than what is really going on out there. Essentially, this boils down to every 2 minutes, there's a recordable hand or arm wrist injury in the workplace in the United States. And I always, when I think of that in that light, it really is somewhat daunting to think about. That it's the frequency is there, and these are preventable injuries. You know, if we manage it properly and we use the right PPE, you know, cut type gloves, puncture proof gloves, cut resistant sleeves, things of that nature, these certainly can be prevented. Okay. Some more numbers there on the screen from our friends at OSHA. And it's interesting, an interesting statistic that to say that workers were not wearing PPE or were wearing PPE that was not the right for the job. You know, just because somebody has a glove on doesn't necessarily mean they're protected from that potential hazard that's part of the work. Okay, pretty interesting slide there, I thought. Now we get into what, you know, ultimately, you know, is one of the big factors of prevention is the cost, you know, and we talk about cost, we can talk about that in dollars and cents, but we can also talk about it on a human level, right? Cost to businesses can be really steep, right? But what about the cost to the worker of an injury, physical and emotional damage, right? As I mentioned earlier, you know, think about that small cut that you had, or something recently, an injury on your hand or finger or something like that. And again, it was at the very least inconvenient and potentially has a deeper meaning to you, okay, deeper effect, right? So our good friends at ANSI, who talk about the standards for all kinds of different things out there that we use. You know, basically what they're saying here is that workers must be provided with PPE for recognized hazards, and that PPE needs to be designed and constructed to actually protect the worker based on the hazard. Okay, that's what I kind of read between the lines on this slide. And so it's important that people who are manufacturing the equipment are following the guidelines here, as well as the end users. It's important to understand, you know, the right tool for the job or the right glove for the hazard. Okay. When we talk about for cut gloves, the standards that are out there from ASTM ANSI, you know, we have to understand what those all mean. Okay. And on this chart here, this is the American standard, okay, which has been changed. They used just to have the one on the glove. Now it's the A next to it. There's confusion out there. Some of the gloves don't show or show both the EN standard as well as the ANSI standard, and they are different. So it's important to understand the difference and look for that cut level with an A next to it on the product that you use. Some of the labeling over time has been less than stellar. I'll raise my hand on behalf of our company and say that, you know, looking at some of the older versions of our gloves, you really had to look closely to get it, and we've done a really good job of cleaning that up to make sure that it is visible what that cut level is. So it's important to make sure we match the glove to the hazard. Are there any questions thus far? Pause for a moment. All right, moving on. So this slide is just kind of a quick glimpse into our laboratory and what we have to do. These are different machines that can test our products for abrasion resistance, cut resistance, puncture resistance, and more. It's kind of a busy slide with all the graphs and everything there, but you know, as a responsible manufacturer, we go through all these tests and we reevaluate and evaluate the product as it goes along to make sure that you know, when we say something is going to protect you to this level, that it actually does, and that it's durable. Okay. So let's talk about the rules. Okay. OSHA has rules about talk about what we have to do, right? ANSI writes standards. They're not the law. OSHA obviously is the law, right? And basically what they're saying here is that kind of mirrors what ANSI says. The workers must be provided with PPE for recognized hazards, and the PPE needs to be designed and constructed to protect the worker based on the hazard. Pretty straightforward stuff. Okay. And this is the construction standard. And then we have the general industry standard, and they both kind of mirror each other. Okay. They both say that you kind of got to do it the right way and use the right stuff for the hazard. Okay. Everything that worker could encounter during the work. Okay. So as I said before, this is a preventable problem, you know, hand injuries, cuts, and things of that nature, right? And we talked earlier about that 70% of the injuries, workers weren't wearing the right PPE. Why is that, right? And as it's noted on the slide, I think the thing here to think about is it's important that companies have a safety culture that makes clear the rules, okay? As well as concern for the well-being of their workers, right? They need to make this personal. Gloves need to mirror the environment they're used in, and must, in my opinion, provide the best possible dexterity for the task being performed. Otherwise those gloves are coming off. Okay. It's really, to me, that's the whole key, is how do we keep the glove on the hand of the worker. Okay. And obviously, as in anything that we do in the safety world, we operate under our hierarchy of controls. As always, PPE is that last line of defense. If we have no other way to protect the workers from the hazards, right, that PPE better measure up, right, and it better match the hazard. If not, we've completely missed the mark we haven't done our job. Okay. So more on the solution, right? Comfort and dexterity, number one characteristic that we have to have, right? They are the prime motivators. Okay. That's what this is what we hear. Okay. Is the most common complaints. Glove was uncomfortable. It was too hot. It was too cold. I couldn't feel the work. I couldn't pick this up. I couldn't do that. Okay. Solution part two, I'm a huge believer, and this goes back to my fall protection world and my dropped object prevention world. Involve the workers in the selection of the products that they're going to be required to wear. Okay. Is there a question?
They thought that it was March 31st.
Right. Somebody's not muted out there. I'm going to just
But
pause for a moment.
So I don't think they're going to get in trouble.
Holly, you're not muted.
All right, I think we're good. As I was saying, we got to involve the workers in that selection that they're going to be required to wear. And this again goes to the fall protection thing and the dropped object prevention thing. If they have a part in the process, the workers have a part in the process, they've got skin in the game, okay? And they're more likely to wear the right gloves and encourage others to do so as well. It is not practical, in my opinion, to assume that the same glove works for all situations, right? Climate, hazard, trade, and more all apply, right? But when I was in the dropped object prevention world, which everybody who's been around that knows, the workers were absolutely overjoyed about it, right? Couldn't wait to tether their tools, okay? Companies that were successful in that world, a very challenging world, involved those workers in the process. Companies that did not, they just dropped a box at a safety meeting and said, this is what we're doing, come and get them. They struggled and struggled and struggled to get people to buy in. So involve the workers. I think that's a huge part of it. I'm doing an activity coming up next week on a large project in the area where their gloves are all over the map. And they want to standardize, and they want to get a basic lineup of gloves that meet the hazards they have. And we're going to go out there. We're going to involve the guys and gals, and probably going to end up with a pretty good deal when we're done. Okay, I can't stress that enough. My experience has taught me well, and by examples that this is a great way to approach a problem and the corresponding solution. Okay. Anyway, moving on. So this is my mantra. Okay. Ultimately, is all about keeping the right gloves on the hands of workers. Okay. Gloves that protect the worker for the hazards that exist. If the worker feels compelled to remove a glove for any reason while in the line of fire, then it's quite possible that the wrong glove is on that worker's hand. Okay? The right glove can make all the difference, folks, and not all hazards are the same, right? Different materials perform best when used in the right environment. Do you know the cut resistance you need? Do you know which palm material performs best when wet or oily? What about cold weather or hot? All right. So the 5 factors listed on the bottom of this slide should be part of how you address glove selection. Okay. Comfort and dexterity. That's rule 1 and rule 1A. Okay. Then we can get into, durability and abrasion resistance, grip, and obviously cut resistance, right? Those things are all need to be taken into consideration given their due when we're selecting our gloves. Skipping those steps likely going to create challenges. Okay. So the right glove, as I mentioned before, can make all the difference, and not all hazards are the same. Different materials perform best when used in the right environment. It's all about that, right? So we need to make sure that we're talking about the right gloves, right? The primary materials that we see out in the marketplace are a few different versions of nitrile. There's nitrile foam, there's sandy nitrile, there's flat nitrile, and others. Polyurethane, okay, latex, and others. Right? Latex is kind of the old school material, been around for a long time, but it has a great application for a number of things. Polyurethane, known for good dexterity and durability. Nitrile does a lot of different things real well. So it's important to understand what material makes the most sense, right? There's a lot of different materials also out there that provide that cut resistance, okay? And some of them are, proprietary names. Some of them are different versions of similar products, okay? So we need to make sure we're looking at all that. Another thing I think is important is, when we talk about these types of gloves is the dip, right? A regular dip just kind of covers the fingers and the thumb. 3/4 dip kind of goes up to the knuckles, on the top knuckles on the top of the hand, okay? And a full dip, basically that glove is dipped all the way up to the wrist, and those perform differently. They can provide more or less resistance when we grip our hand, okay? So, and they both, all of those styles provide differing levels of water resistance, okay? Obviously, a full dip type glove is going to provide the most, but it's also going to probably provide a little more resistance when we close our hand, okay? If we have a glove that provides resistance as we open and close our hand, what's the byproduct of that over a workday? Right? It's likely fatigue, right? And fatigue's never a friend to a worker. So it's important that, we're using the right thing. Again, I know that's repetitive on my part, but it's an important consideration. One of the things I've seen, and I mentioned on this slide, to get professional help. There's a lot of people out there talking about gloves. There's folks like me who are representing a factory. Okay. Then there's representative of our safety houses and our supply houses that are helping us with gloves. But we have to remember, that we need to that selection that we do can't be based on necessarily what's just available. I understand if there's nothing available, then something's probably better than nothing. But make sure we're getting the glove that makes sense by asking all the questions and going through all those steps, the 5 steps I talked about on the earlier slides. And remember this, one size does not fit all. This is something I experienced in my prior life, and I've actually seen it on job sites and facilities I've been into. You see somebody, like me, who wears a medium glove, walking around with a large or an XL on because, we didn't have a medium, or most of the workers wore larges, so all I bought was larges, right? That does happen, all right? If I'm a medium hand and somebody gives me a large or an XL glove for the day's work, how likely is it going to be that glove's going to stay in my hand all day when I'm trying to do something, right? And conversely, putting something too small on somebody, that can't be comfortable either, and that's going to create that fatigue and just discomfort, so gloves are coming off, right? So there's a lot of different products out there. Cut and puncture resistant gloves, leather gloves, mechanic style, winter lined, chemical resistance, and so on. Okay, lots of products to select from out there, and we have to make sure that we have the ones that make sense for what we're doing. And as I said on the previous slide, it's best to consult with a professional. We do glove surveys. That's a big thing I'm kind of doing, and I'll be doing, as I mentioned, next week. We're just going to go out and look at what they got, ask questions about how it's working, what could be better, right? We'll offer solutions, get them samples to try out, put them to test in the field, get feedback. Okay. The cool thing about feedback, at least for me, and my boss may or may not agree with it, I'm sure he might, is that if we get good feedback on products as we're doing these surveys, then we're gonna have a better ear onto what we should be building into our products, right? That's the best for us. That's the best test of all, is to have people tell us what they want and why they want it. We're not talking about a unicorn, because that's tough, but we can possibly come up with something that makes sense. So again, the messaging here is that we got to put the right stuff on people's hands. We got to make sure that it's comfortable, has all the proper dexterity, and that they will keep it on their hands when they're in the line of fire. Is anything short of meeting those criteria, the gloves are coming off, and and bad things happen when that happens. It'd be no different than somebody taking off a respirator in the wrong environment, walking around without a hard hat because it wasn't comfortable, or not wearing their fall protection properly because it wasn't comfortable or didn't fit. Okay, so that's my message on that, folks. I hope that this has been somewhat helpful for you. Please keep in mind that we're here to support your efforts. I'm sorry. Oh, somebody's exiting. Anyway, my contact information is on the slide. If folks have questions, need assistance with anything related to gloves, those of you that know me know I'm a pretty low-key, low-pressure type of individual, and I'd be happy to answer questions, whether or not you're using products I represent. I'd rather see people be safe and go home in the proper condition. That's all I got, guys. I think we're going to give you back a little time today.
Well, that was fantastic.